بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Assalamu alaikum, guys, and welcome to another session. Our very last session, actually. Subhanallah. In advanced structures, it's been a long journey since we began. Almost a year ago, we started this whole journey of revising the entire Bayina curriculum, and today marks the final day of advanced structures, and maybe not the last day of revision, but it's an important date, I suppose, because we are closing a major chapter, alhamdulillah. And yesterday we started on basically we started on the topic of plurals. We went through a number of plurals in Arabic. So we talked about the main categories, basically sound plurals and broken plurals. So that's something to note. We talked about what sound plurals are, what broken plurals are. Sometimes you may have one word that only have one sound plural, like we mentioned, or you can have a word that has a sound plural and a broken plural, or you can have a word that has two broken plurals, or three broken plurals, or four broken plurals, and so on and so forth. So, and then we also discussed a couple of other kinds of plurals. We mentioned super plurals, or jam. So you take a plural and you pluralify it further. You make it a bigger plural. Or plural by meaning this is plural because the Arab said so, and we discussed about that as well. And we also talked about plural by categories. So, and we mentioned these are the words that their singular version either ends in ta marbuta or ya and nisba, and you just make it plural by removing either the ta marbuta or the ya and nisba. All right. Now there's one category I added here after looking at some books. It's a very easy category, so I added this, and this is ismul jins al-ifradi, and this is individual plurals by categories. Now this idea is just that you cannot break this thing further. Like, it's, for example, turab, sand, or soil. You cannot say two sands or two soils or three sands, or it doesn't make any sense. So turab is just turab, or zait is just zait. It's a category of things, but you cannot make it plural more than that. Zait means oil, so you cannot say two oils or zaitani or zait. You can't do that. Yeah. Laban, same thing. Milk is just milk. Like, you cannot divide milk into half and say, okay, now this is two milks, or this is three milks, milkuna or milkatun. I don't know what you will be doing there. So that's just for your own knowledge and understanding. It's a pretty straightforward one that I added there. And then, of course, we talked about jam'un la mufrada laha, la mufrada lahu. These are plurals that do not have a singular. And we mentioned al-abadil because it's the only one that happens in the Quran. And then we also talked about shared plurals, a word that is both singular and plural at the same time. Yeah, al-fulk and daif, both of them happen in the Quran. Both these words happen in the Quran. So it's important to know. So today, inshallah, we're going to go deeper and discuss sound versus broken. So we mentioned that the two main categories of plurals is either is going to be sound or is going to be broken. Those are the two main categories. But sometimes you have words that have both sound and broken. So the question then becomes, which one do I use? Do I go for sound plural? Do I go for broken plural? Is there a distinction between this broken plural and another broken plural, or using the sound plural versus using the broken plural? What's the idea? Okay, so now the most important thing to understand is that this discussion is only relevant if you have both. You cannot talk about a plural that only has sound plural and then you discuss this, what we're about to discuss. It doesn't apply because it only has one plural, the sound plural. So this discussion applies to words whose plural have both sound plural and broken plurals. So that's important to note. And also, another thing to note is that there are certain words that have several broken plurals. Okay, so it could have, like, for example, kafir. So you have kafir. Let me just write it here. So you have kafir. What's happening? So you have kafir. Kafir. Writing. Kafir. Okay. So kafir, it has several plurals. This word is so hard. Gosh. Plurals. The first one you can have is a sound plural, which is kafiruna. So you add the una ending, you have kafirun, right? Or you could have kuffar. What just happened? Kuffar. Okay. That's another plural you could have. Or you could have kafara. That's another plural. So which one do you know when to use which? What to use what? So if it's between sound and broken, then there are two discussions we're going to have. But if it's between broken and broken, then the discussion you have is either jamu qilla or jamu kathra. Is it a lesser plural or a greater plural, a larger plural? So just keep that at the back of your mind. Okay. So now, when we are talking about sound versus broken, if you have a word that has both, so for example, you have kafiruna and kuffar, two plurals there, a sound plural and a broken plural. Then there are two things you have to consider. Two things you have to consider. The first one is it a lesser plural? Is it jam'u qilla or is it jam'u kathra? Or is it a larger plural? When we say qilla and kathra, basically, what we mean is that the sound plural is going to be a lesser plural, which means it's about 3 to 10. We're talking about 3 to 10 things. So it's going to be the sound plural. Una, ina, atun, atin, atin. Okay, so that one will be a lesser plural if we are discussing between sound and a broken plural. So the sound one would always be a jam'u qilla. And the broken one is 11 and above. So jam'u kathra. It implies more. So that's the discussion when it comes to that. That's the first one, either in terms of quantity. So the first discussion is about in terms of quantity. Is it a small quantity or a large quantity? If it's a sound plural, it's a small quantity. If it's a broken plural, it's a large quantity. That's one. The second thing we discuss is something called iradatul ism versus iradatul hadath. So what is being intended? Is the thing being intended the noun itself or the action that is being intended? So iradatul ism is when the noun itself is being intended, a person, the thing itself is being intended. But if it's the action that is being intended, then it's iradatul hadath. Okay, iradatul hadath, the action is being intended. So sometimes you can use the plural to intend either the action of it or the noun of it. So let's look at a couple of examples so that we can make this clear. Now, when we look at jamu qilla, jamu kathra, we have the word, for example, ghurfa. Ghurfa is a room. Ghurfa is a room. It has both sound plural and a broken plural, because we mentioned that this discussion is only important if you have both. So you can say ghurufat, ghurufatun, atun, atin, atin. So you have ghurufat, and then you have ghurafun, which is the broken plural. So when Allah is using ghurufat, then less is intended. 3 to 10, less is intended. But when he's using ghurafan, or ghuraf in this case, more is intended. It's a lot more in that sense. So that's the distinction there. Okay. So this is more of a balagha concept. You know, people would ask, okay, so why did Allah use ghuraf here and why did he use ghurufat here? And then you go into the context of the surah and then you realize, oh, because in this particular context, he's talking maybe about a special group of people, or maybe he's talking about Jannah as a whole. So, or maybe he's talking about a particular area in Jannah, and that's why it is less on, or that's why it's more. Something like that, discussions like that. That's why that happens. We will look at some of those broken plurals. So there are certain broken plurals that have specific patterns, and these specific patterns determine whether they are lesser plurals or larger plurals, whether they're jamu qilla or jamu kathra. We'll see this table and we'll ascertain. This is only for broken plurals. So I just put it there just to guide you. All right. Then we come to the second thing, whether it's an action that is intended or an ism that is intended, okay? So this mostly applies to the plurals for ism fa'il. So like fa'ilun, daribun, sami'un, that, you know, that kind of pattern. All right. They said this in the book, in the textbook, they said it applies to animate objects or beings. So basically, that's an important thing to watch out for because it applies to animates, not inanimate, like human beings and intelligent beings, if you will. Okay. So, oh, there's a Hamza here that is missing. So, between the two, iradatul ism and iradatul hadith. We said iradatul ism is when the noun it's being intended, okay, like the person themselves or the intelligent being themselves, or it could be iradatul hadith where the action is intended, okay? So in this case, if you have a sound plural, then it's action-based. So sound plural is action-based. The action itself is the one thing being intended. So una, ina, atun, atin, atin, these are action-based. Okay, so the action itself is being intended. So we know that ism fa'il can act as a fi'al. By the way, this is where the discussion is coming. So ism fa'il can act as a fi'al. Because it can act as a fi'al, so it can portray the meaning of an action. Yeah. So when we use a certain plural, it can portray an action. And when we use a certain plural, it can portray the people themselves. So let's look at this example, like it will become clearer. So for example, أرسله معنا غدا يرتع ويلعب وإنا له لحافظون. So this is una, ina, ina. This is a sound plural. It means that it's an action that is being intended here by the brothers of Yusuf when they were saying this. So when you're translating that, Hafiz is a protector. Hafiz is a protector or a preserver. That's a Hafiz. So they're saying we are going to be protectors over him. But because it's action-based, then we will translate it as we will protect him. Protect him. Because it's the action that is being intended, the action of protecting. Yeah? So that is una, that is a sound plural. When it's a broken plural, then it's the meaning of the noun itself that is being intended. For example, Hafiz is a protector. That's what it means. So that's the noun itself. It's not acting as a fi'al. It's not acting as an action. Right? So for example, وَيُرْسِلُ عَلَيْكُمْ حَفَظَةً. Allah is saying, and he will send upon you protectors. Now we're not saying he will send upon you those who will protect. Yeah, we're actually using the word protectors. So وَيُرْسِلُ عَلَيْكُمْ حَفَظَةً, and he sends upon you protectors. So that's kind of like the difference of the intention in the iradatul hadath and iradatul ism. What is being intended? Is it the action that is being intended, or is it just the noun itself that is being intended? Again, remember, it's mostly ism fa'il that we're talking about here, and that's why this discussion comes about, and mostly to do with intelligent beings, right? Not inanimate objects. Like for example here, hafidun is people, the brothers of Yusuf. Hafadatan here is messengers, like angels. Yeah. Any questions so far on that? Because that's basically the discussion of broken and sound plural. So those are the two things you look at when you're looking at broken or sound. So you ask yourself, is there a question? There was a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, in Hafazatun, how is that ism file? Hafizun and
okay. So it's a broken plural. Let's start with that. So we know that the broken plural does not follow the pattern. It does not follow like hafidun, then you add una, and then it follows that pattern. It's broken in a sense that they took the word hafiz and they removed stuff. Sometimes they add stuff. So it's broken. Yeah. Now, hafaza is a broken plural for the word hafiz. And we will see, I'm going to show you a list of patterns, different patterns for different some of these words. So yeah, by the way, this topic of plurals, I think it just comes with a lot of practice and a lot of encountering these words, because you can't know the plurals of all words. Just like in English, the way you knew that the plural of goose is geese, like you encountered this several times until it's stuck with your mind. So some of this stuff is going to be like that, because it's a long, long list, especially with kathra, jam'u kathra. It's over 30 different kinds of patterns. You can't memorize 30 patterns. Honestly, it's crazy. So you just encounter them and know what to do. But I'll give you a trick or a tip. Okay. So here's the list. It's a long list, as you can see. It's a long one. Yeah. So obviously we can't memorize this. This is just there to guide us, right? And the more you expose yourself to these words, the more you would be able to distinguish between this is a plural, this is not a plural. It will just come naturally like that. But here's the trick. The trick is there are only 4 patterns that are jam'u qilla. Only 4 patterns that are lesser plurals. These are the only ones you need to know. The rest is going to be kathra. If it's not qilla, it's kathra. It's as simple as that. So you only need to memorize these ones. 4 patterns. Yeah, these 4 patterns. So the first pattern is basically shuhrun is 1, is singular. Okay, so let me show you how I arrange this table. So the first part is the singular version of it. Then you have the broken plural pattern of it, like the container it goes in. And then you have an example. And then, of course, you have a usage, how it is used. So that's basically how it goes. So I'm going to start with the qilla versions, these ones, and then we'll go to the rest, which are the rest, all of them are about kathra, all of them. So these are the only ones that are for lesser plurals. So so this is shahrun, sorry. Did I say, I think I said shuhrun. Shahrun. Shahrun is a month, 1 month. Okay, you put it into a broken plural, it becomes ashhurun. So this pattern af'ulun is what we are looking at. So anything that falls, any broken plural that falls into this pattern af'ulun, it shows less. It shows fewer quantity. So when Allah talks about ashhurun hurum, minhum arba'atu ashhurun hurum. Maybe I'm messing up the ayah, probably. But the idea is he talked about 4 months that are holy months. Yeah. So you can see 4 is between 3 to 10. So it's jam'u qilla. So this pattern af'ulun, ashhurun. That's number 1. The second one is this other pattern af'al. So amalun, a'mal, a'mal. Okay, amalun, a'mal, af'al. So anything that falls into this pattern of af'al, that's also a jam'u qilla. And then you have af'ila, af'ila. So fu'adun, af'ida, af'ida. Yeah, fu'adun is a chest, af'ida, chests. Okay, and then the last one is fi'ila. Oh, yeah, fi'ila. Okay, so fatan is a boy. Then fityatun is boys or young men. Yeah. So these are the only ones you need to know about. Okay, and then everything else is a jam'u kathra. Everything else. All right. So let's just quickly maybe go through this stuff. These are stuff that were mentioned in the book. So if you need any further clarification, you can consult the textbook. So for example, you have this pattern of fu'alun, where the broken plural pattern follows this part fu'al, like kuffar is a very common example. So this one has to basically, you see the shadda there, it tells you that it's intense. It's being done a lot. You know, whenever you see shadda, basically most of the time it just means intensity. It increases in quantity and intensity of how that thing is being done. So kuffar is somebody who does kufr a lot. Okay, keeps doing that action a lot. So of course you can see this is an isim fa'il, kafirun. So the plural, kuffar. And then you have the isim fa'il pattern, hafidun. And the broken plural pattern is hafadhatun. We've come across this one. And again, this one focuses on the profession or on the noun itself, like we mentioned before. And of course, it has to do with kathra a lot, because there are only 4 patterns of lesser plurals. Then sajidun, again, fa'ilun. So you see most of these are going to be isim fa'il. You can have maybe isim sifa. اسم مفعول. These are the ones that most of the time will have a broken plural pattern. I'm not saying they're the only ones, but this is mostly a huge list of the isms. Because when you look at the list of isms, you have اسم فاعل, اسم مفعول, اسم صفة. These are the main ones. And then you have these other ones, mastars and the other kinds of isms. So the main plural patterns are going to be either an اسم فاعل, اسم مفعول, اسم صفة, or the other stuff. Okay? So that's something to just watch out for. So sajidun, for example, sujjadun. Sujjadun. That's another one. So the action is visibly apparent. Like you can actually see somebody doing that action. And again, it's short term. So you don't do it over a long period of time. You do it like when you do sajda, you don't like do sajda for a really long time. So it's short-lived, this pattern. Fu'alun. Sa'iqa. Again, اسم فاعل. The plural is sawa'iq, fawa'il, fawa'il pattern. It shows lack of movement for inanimate objects. Like sa'iqa is a shriek, is a large sound, is a disturbing sound. Yeah, so that will be a sa'iqa, then sawa'iq, plural. Dhakarun is a male person, and then you can have a broken plural in the pattern of fu'lan, zukran. So this one indicates a relatively small number. Okay, this one indicates, so if you have this one plus another, maybe like dhukur is also another broken plural for this same word. So dhukran will be relatively smaller, and dhukur will be larger. So that's kind of like how they just distinguish this stuff. You have mayyit, sukran, yatim. So these patterns, fa'ala, fu'ala, and fa'ala. Again, you don't have to memorize this stuff. I haven't memorized this stuff, but the more you practice with it, you just know, okay, mauta is a plural for mayyit. Mauta, fa'ala is a plural for mayyit. Sukara is a plural for sukran. Sukran is somebody who's a drunk. So sukara, that would be drunk people. Yatim, often. Yatama, orphans. So you see these kinds of patterns, they show deficiency or calamity or something missing. Like a mayyit is somebody who lacks life. So it's not even something small missing, it's a major thing missing. Yeah. Sukara, their intellect is missing, basically, like they're not right in their minds. Yatama is missing a dad, you know. So that kind of stuff. This is an interesting one. So you have kabir, because this, what patterns are this? This is isim sifa, as opposed to isim fa'il, like the rest. So we have, or masdars. Here we have isim sifa. Okay, kabir, shadid, yeah. So this, the plurals, they follow the pattern fu'ala, like kubara, and kibar. So you have kubara and also kibar. And if it's the same root letters at the end, like if it's muda'af, we talked about this, so this is shadada, it's muda'af, you will have the pattern ashidda'u, af'ila'u, or afilla'u, this kind of pattern, afilla'u, so it keeps on repeating. So you have this, ashidda'u is also a pattern. Now, I was trying to look at the difference because somebody asked a question, it was like, okay, fine. So if you have shidadun is a plural, like kibarun, and you also have ashidda'u, what's the difference then? What's the difference between kubara'u, kibar? What's the difference? Because if I have both, because you can have kubara and you can have kibar. I think this is something that Dr. Fadil Samirai mentioned, that kubara is something that is used for what is it called? Metaphorical. So metaphorical. Yes, metaphorical. So kubara is metaphorical in nature. Like, for example, what does kubara mean? It means leaders. Yeah. But if I say kibar, I actually mean older people. So kabir is somebody who's old or big in size. So if I say kibar, I'm actually referring to a literal attribute of somebody, very literal. So it's has to do with either age or size. That would be kibar. But kubara It's more metaphorical. So I hope that explains something for you. Then you have sajid, again another isim fa'il. Now this one, the plural, is on the pattern of a masdar. Because sujud, what is sujud? Sujud is a masdar. Sajada yasjudu, sujud, or sijdatan fahuwa sajidun. Yeah. So you have sometimes the plural coming in the pattern of a masdar. So it looks like a masdar. Now this one just indicates the literal action of it, the literal action of doing sajda. All right. Then you have some of these patterns that are jam'u qilla, and then you have quite a bit that are jam'u kathra, just a lot of them. I'm going to share this with you so that you can go through them and just get some idea of all these patterns. But what I'm going to mention, lastly here, what I'm going to mention is this pattern that probably you may not be familiar with, but I mentioned it yesterday. So this is the siyaq muntaha al-jumu'a. These are the, is it siyaq or siyaq? Siyaq. I think it's siyaq. So these are the plurals that have to do with the end, the utmost end. You cannot pluralify something after this. Like this is the end of stuff, okay? So basically we have, for example, akbaru, which means it's a isim tafdil, akbaru, and most isim tafdils, they come under this pattern. So akbaru, the plural pattern is akabir, okay? Ibriq, this is lightning. Then you have plural is abariq. Then risalatun, which is a letter or a message. Rasail. Madrasatun, madaris. Misbahun, masabih. When I'm mentioning this plurals, what do you see it's common? What is common among all these plurals? You can just listen to what I'm saying. Akabir, abariq, rasail, madaris, masabih.
It's an alif.
There's an alif. Like it's a very common thing to actually identify these patterns because there's always going to be an alif. Now the trick is you'll have 2 letters before the alif and you will have at least 2 letters after the alif. That's how you know that this is that kind of a plural, the final kind of plural. You cannot go plural beyond this point. Okay. So there's an alif in between. So 2 letters before it, 2 letters after it, at least 2 letters after it. Okay, so 2 letters before it and at least 2 letters after it. If you have more than 2 letters after it, the middle letter, so you'll have like 3 letters, for example, the middle letter will have a sukun. It will be abariq. See, it has a sukun there. Or you will have masabih. If there's no sukun, this is not the pattern. This is not the pattern. It has to have a sukun. So asa, fir. There's a sukun there. So that's an important thing to always remember. So 2 letters before, then you have an alif, then at least 2 letters after. If there are more than 2 letters, then the middle letter has to have a sukun. The middle letter has to have a sukun, right? So these are some of the plurals. And also we have these other ones, like for example, atshan and atashi. You cannot plurify this further than this. So atshan already is mubalagha. This is ism mubalagha, atshan. I am extremely thirsty. So how do you make plural of that? You say atashi. And that's the end of that, atashi. Yeah. And then you have karasi, kursiyu, then karasi. Karasi. And of course, because these are the final plurals, they're obviously going to be denoting kathra. Right? So what I'm going to do next is probably I'm just going to do like 3 examples here. And then I'm going to share with you these exercises, and you can find more in the Quran, and you can just do it for yourself. The reason why otherwise it's going to be hard for us to do it together is because we'll have to go back to this list and figure out which pattern is it falling under. So, and therefore, like, how do I understand it? And it's going to be hard for us to go back and forth like that. But it's something you can do on your own. Okay. So let's try and do like 3. So the first one is قد علم كل أناس مشربهم. Unas. So I asked myself, okay, so there's first of all sound plurals, broken plurals. This is obviously not a sound plural because it doesn't end in una, ina. It doesn't end in atun, atin. So this is a broken plural. Okay. Now it's a broken plural, but what kind of a broken plural is it? Now I could ask myself, what is the singular version? If I know the singular version, it could help me. If I don't know the singular version, then I look at the meaning. What does unas mean? Means people. Okay. And what do we know about that kind of word? You know, it's plural because the Arab said so. So this one becomes like, you know, ismul jama, plural because the Arab said so. So that's kind of like how you process some of this stuff. Okay. Then you have إن الذين تدعون من دون الله لن يخلقوا ذبابا ولو اجتمعوا له. So here, probably if I don't know what this word is, I can go to the meaning and say, okay, what does it mean? Then I see it means flies. Okay, so this is flies. So what do I know about flies? Flies is a species, is a category, is a genus, is a group of things, right? Group of a particular thing. So it's definitely going to fall into ismul jins al-jam'i, the plural by categories. Yeah, and actually the singular version of it is dubabatun. It has a ta marbuta. So they removed the ta marbuta to make the plural. So this is an ism jins al-jam'i. Yeah. And then you have a word like usara. So this is now where it gets tricky. Where do I have to know the patterns? Okay, if I don't know the patterns, then I go look for the patterns. I go check. But and then you can also check the singular version of it. You can check the meaning of it, and it will guide you as to what this is. So this is actually the plural of the word, I think, asir. Asir is what are they called? Prisoners of war. Yeah, prisoners of war. So it's something that is lacking something. You can see a prisoner of war is somebody who is lacking their freedom. So it comes into this pattern, this usara, sukara. So sukran, this pattern sukara, yeah, or yatama. Let's see, is it asir? Is usara? So sukara. So it follows the pattern sukara. So you can see, yeah, something like that. Wallahu yuhibbul muhsinin. This is very straightforward. It's a sound plural. It's ending in ina. So you can see, like, that's kind of like how you go through this whole process. Yeah. And of course, when you see muhsinina, you ask yourself, is there a broken plural for this word? If there is a broken plural for this word, then you would know that muhsinina here is being intended as a lesser plural, and then the broken plural will be kafra. All right. Any questions? Because that's pretty much the end of our discussion. The rest you'll have to do it on your own, so that you can figure out by yourself. And if you have any questions, you can ask them in the group, inshallah. But that's plural, guys. That's the end. And I will share the entire workbook to the Google Drive link, so that you can access the entire workbook. If you want to check different places of the notes, you can have it. All right. One final thing before we leave, I just wanted to show you something. We talked about Aid. Aid, this is a pronoun that keeps coming back. And I just wanted to show you how notorious the Aid is. It appears a lot. That's why it's a kind of like an important thing. So you have, for example, we did advanced Nahu before we started advanced structures. And it was there in Ism Mawsul. It was there in compound sifa. It was there in al-hal. Yeah, and that's about it. And then when we came to advanced structures, it was there in al-ishtighal. It was there in al-na'at as-sababi. So it keeps coming back. This pronoun that keeps coming back, it's an important one, so that you know which concepts requires an a'id. It doesn't mean like it's a must, because sometimes in an ism mawsul, the a'id is omitted. We know this, that sometimes the a'id is omitted. And what that would imply then, tawassu' fil ma'na and things like that. So it can be omitted, but just to know that these are the topics where you expect a'id. Yeah, these are the topics where you expect a'id. Here in hal is mostly when it comes to the jumla fi'liya and jumla ismiya, you have to have a pronoun. You have to have a pronoun that goes back to the sahibul hal. So that's about it. And that's the end, guys. These are all the topics we've done so far. Alhamdulillah, we're done. Any final, I don't know, questions, remarks, comments before I close this session? Okay. Great. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاك الله.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
جزاك الله خيرا.
إياكم.